I confessed to my husband about my affair, and his revenge left me shocked.
Sometimes it's not good to say the truth. Some truths are better left untold. I told my husband about my 8 weeks affair, and that has ruined everything for me. Well, I didn't expect him to react the way he did. His reaction was over-exaggerated. He ruined my childhood memories. I thought that telling him the truth would at least make him a little bit compassionate and let him calm down. Instead of calming down, he just decided to do something I never expected him to do. Hi guys, my name is Becky. I am 23 years old, and I have been married to my husband for 3 years now. During the past 3 years of our marriage, my husband has been very busy, and he hardly stays at home. I have been very lonely, and most times I feel disconnected from him. The past 3 years have been depressing because I thought my husband was going to be present in my life. But rather, he has been very far from me. I needed to feel loved and appreciated, but he's the opposite. The name of my husband is Andrew, and he is 28 years old. He is a surgeon, and he is very busy. The nature of my husband's job requires long hours of work, and he comes back home late. Sometimes he's always on night shifts and comes back home the following day. There are days I don't get to see Andrew before he leaves for work. Even on weekends, my husband works more at the hospital, leaving me lonely at home. This has caused a bridge in our relationship as we don't spend quality time like normal couples do. His hectic work schedule has made it difficult for Andrew and I to have normal conversation. We don't usually go on regular dates like we used to when we were still dating or attending functions together. Now Andrew is like a stranger, and I barely get to see him. This is not what I signed up for. I never signed up for this. I know his work is very important to him, and I'm not trying to be selfish. But this has mentally drained me. I have tried everything to make this marriage work. I even tried to have a conversation with Andrew about it, but he keeps talking about the nature of his job. There was even a day I waited for my husband to come back home for us to talk, but he made up an excuse that he was tired and not ready to have a back and forth with me. Yes, guys, you read that right. Andrew said it. Me trying to have a conversation with someone I'm married to is now making me look like a troublesome wife, or someone that always gives her husband a hard time when he comes back home. It seems like I am married to myself because I don't even know Andrew anymore. He wasn't like this when we were still dating. My husband was always giving me attention and everything I needed. Yes, I don't lack anything that would keep me comfortable at home or any material things, because my husband works for both of us. But still, I keep yearning for my husband's attention. Money is not everything, at least not to me. My husband doesn't want to understand that his wife also needs attention, like he always gives to his patients at the hospital. Andrew believes that all is fine with me because I have everything a wife could ask for in order to make her live comfortable at home. I don't even know the last time Andrew and I even attended a function together, or went out as normal couples. There was a time I had to attend a fundraiser all by myself. I felt so lonely looking at other couples that were present. It looked as if I was single. Some of Andrew's friends and mine kept asking why Andrew didn't come and why I came alone. I had to cover up for him. On many occasions like that, I do make excuses for Andrew. Sometimes I do feel like he's doing this on purpose or probably cheating on me with another lady. Who knows, maybe he's having an affair with one of his colleagues at work and using his work as a cover-up. On Andrew's birthday, I wanted to throw a surprise birthday party for him, so I invited some of our friends. I couldn't invite any family members because we live far from them, so I invited some of Andrew's friends and mine to help me surprise him on his birthday. On the morning of his birthday, I tried my best to wish him a happy birthday before leaving for work. We woke up that morning, I told him a happy birthday, and even sang a birthday song for him. He was happy, and I could tell he was smiling before he left for work. As soon as he left, I made a few calls and started the arrangements. I rented a hall and decorated it with help from our friends. To make it more unique, I baked a nice, lovely cake for Andrew. I made all the arrangements for food and drinks for those that would be present. I sent out a message instructing them not to let Andrew know about it so as to not ruin the surprise. Everyone complied and didn't let Andrew know of it. Everything was set. Everyone arrived at the venue 30 minutes to the time. The party was scheduled at 8 o'clock and everyone was present by 7:30. The saxophonist and the music band were also present. It all went according to how I planned it to be. Now, the only person to be present there was the birthday celebrant, Andrew. They were all eager to see the celebrant. I brought out my phone to put a call through to him, informing him to come to the venue. I wanted my husband's 28th birthday to be a memorable one for him, and at least it was my own little way of showing him how much I loved and still love him. Andrew was never like this before. I have no problem with him working, but his nonchalant attitude and lack of attention is what is draining me mentally and emotionally. All of this started when my husband got promoted at his workplace. I'm not trying to say Andrew's promotion is bad or something, but it has brought more harm than good. Well, to me at least. I barely see him at home. So guys, I brought out my phone to put Andrew through on the phone since he was the reason for the event. The first 2 minutes I tried, Andrew's line was unreachable. I kept my cool and continued trying his lines. I was desperate to reach him. After a few minutes of not being able to reach Andrew, I called the attention of Andrew's friend, Stanley. Stanley and Andrew have been friends since childhood, and they are very close in their friendship. I told Stanley about the situation that I can't get his friend on the phone because his lines were unreachable. He pulled me to a corner in the hall so we wouldn't create a scene and told me to calm down so that he would try to call him. Stanley also tried Andrew's line, but it was still not reachable. At that point, a lot of thoughts ran through my mind. What if Andrew had taken the supposed lady he was cheating on me with to a nice restaurant to celebrate his birthday? Meanwhile, I was there wasting my time to pull up a birthday surprise for him. I was lost in deep thoughts until Stanley told me that I should send him a text message and try calling him again. I tried calling him again, and this time, it went. I was very happy because Andrew's lines were reachable. I was very excited and anxiously waited for him to pick up his phone. I kept calling and texting him, hoping that Andrew would pick his calls. My husband didn't pick up nor return any of my messages. This also added to my frustrations, and I was completely pissed. Stanley also tried calling him multiple times but still got no response from him. I noticed that the guests were already complaining and asking what was going on. It's been an hour already and there was no glimpse of the celebrant in the hall. Stanley told me to keep trying Andrew's line while he took care of the guest. Well, somehow Stanley managed to convince the guests and returned back to where I stood. We kept trying his lines and we still got no response. It was very bad, guys. I'm not even joking. I was extremely embarrassed. At that point, it was not funny anymore. How could I invite my friends and Andrews to come out and surprise him only for him to delay like that? All my efforts were practically in vain. What did he expect me to tell all those people present there? My husband, whom I pulled out this surprise for, is not picking up his calls or returning any messages. OMG. I didn't believe what was happening back then. It was 9:30 o'clock and Andrew was still nowhere to be found. The guests started leaving in their numbers, feeling disgusted at how I managed to waste their time to come to a birthday party that the celebrant was not even in attendance. At that time, it felt like I should hide my face because of the nasty comments. All the guests left, leaving Stanley and I in the empty hall. I felt betrayed and was very angry with how things turned out. Stanley told me to go home and that he would take care of things there. I drove home weeping and cried my eyes out. I kept asking myself what I had done to deserve all of that. I kept asking myself why Andrew suddenly changed. We weren't like that before, so what changed? Those were the thoughts in my head as I drove home weeping. I got home and managed to get to the bedroom waiting for Andrew to come. A few minutes later, Andrew returned back. He met me all sobbed up and asked what was wrong with me. I asked him where his phone was and he brought it out. Guys, my husband's phone wasn't on silent or anything. I asked him if he didn't see my calls or messages, but he said he was sorry that he couldn't pick calls or return any text messages at that time. He didn't ask why I had to call him continuously like that or tried to be remorseful about it. Andrew and I got into a heated argument that night. I told him how I went out of my way to plan a birthday surprise for him and also invited friends to come celebrate with him, only for him to blow it up. Andrew also made the usual excuse, I was very busy with work. I was very disappointed and irritated, so I left the room. A few weeks went by, and Andrew's late night shifts grew worse. It was as if my husband was purposely made for that profession alone. I no longer sat with my husband to watch movies. We stopped eating together. We also stopped doing our normal daily routine. It was hell. I'm a full-time housewife. Before we got married, Andrew and I discussed that I stay at home while he works to fend for the both of us. I agreed to it, but I never thought it would turn out this way. That was not the life I imagined, and I don't plan to continue to stay that way. I didn't have a problem staying at home taking care of my family and household. But it is frustrating when your partner doesn't give you attention or even try to carve out time for you two to bond as couples. I don't even remember when I last received a gift from my husband. I'm sure he must have forgotten about the date of our anniversary. If he could not come to his own surprise birthday party, I was sure he wouldn't come for the anniversary. I couldn't continue to deal with this nonchalant behavior that Andrew had developed. I got tired and frustrated. Ways of communicating with my husband were completely poor. He didn't pick up his calls or return any text messages, and when he came home late at night, you couldn't discuss anything with him. The sudden change made me seek attention elsewhere, so I cheated. Yes, guys, I cheated on Andrew. I started going out with an old-time schoolmate of mine while I was still at college. His name is Patrick. Patrick was a year ahead of me in college, and he was one of the most handsome guys in school. One day, while I was scrolling through the news feed on Facebook, I received a friend request from Patrick, and I accepted without having any intention of doing anything with him. We started chatting for a few weeks, telling each other about how our day went. Our chats intensified, and we exchanged contacts. Patrick and I started texting, calling for late hours, and sometimes Patrick came visiting to keep me company. From what started with an innocent hi, Patrick and I became very close, and we went on a couple of dates together secretly. Yes, guys, Patrick knew I'm married but didn't know Andrew, so we kept our relationship private. This went on for a couple of months, and it felt like I was getting myself back. I forgot I was even married for a long time due to how Andrew had treated me in the past. Patrick gave me all the attention I was begging Andrew for. He noticed every little detail and made sure to put a smile on my face. It felt surreal, because I never thought that someone could listen to me or give me the maximum attention I was yearning for. I was beginning to feel like Patrick was the one for me, and gradually I forgot about Andrew. I never planned to cheat on my husband or do anything to strain our marriage. Andrew couldn't see that his late night shifts and constant late coming at night had caused a bridge in our marriage. He wasn't able to balance the time between personal life and career work together. Yes, I blamed Andrew for this. I blamed him for choosing his work over his wife and giving me less attention than he gave to his work. I didn't regret going out with Patrick. At least I have felt alive for the last couple of months now. Last Friday around noon, my husband came back from work with some bags that he probably must have gotten some stuff from the store. I was surprised to see Andrew coming back home early at that time. He never comes back home in the afternoon. In fact, sometimes when he left for work till the following day. He approached me with the bags and handed it over to me and said he got them for me. I looked confused and asked him if everything was okay with him, and he said yes. Guys, Andrew got me a dress, wristwatch, a bag, and a shoe. He told me to put them on so we could go out for dinner. Yes, dinner. My husband wanted to take me out for the first time in a long time. I lost count of the last time he took me out. It was a bittersweet moment for me. It was bitter in the sense that I was already going out with someone else, and at the same time it was sweet, because my husband had started making out time for us. So guys, Andrew kept on with the sudden behavior. He started taking me out, buying me lots of gifts, went on a couple of dates, and attended functions together. Literally, we started spending quality time together as couples do. He didn't come home late at night any longer, and his night shifts were reduced. On the day of our anniversary, Andrew threw a surprise party for me and promised to rewrite all his wrongs and apologized for the way he had treated me. I was happy that my husband had started realizing where he got it all wrong, and he was ready to make it right again. I lived in those moments for a very long time before I realized that Andrew had no idea of my infidelity. He didn't know that I cheated on him when he failed to give me attention. And I know you all would be wondering what happened between me and Patrick, right? Well, nothing really happened. Patrick and I continued meeting each other as usual. I thought Andrew's sudden change was temporary, but it grew strong for months. He doesn't usually go to work on weekends anymore, so we used it to watch movies and cook together. I missed those days when me and Andrew used to cook, clean, and do other house chores together. It was great back then. We used to be so close together not until he got promoted at work, leaving me lonely at home and not giving me the attention I needed. The last few months were great for me because I finally got the attention I needed from my husband, and we bonded so well together. On the other hand, Patrick, my affair partner, wanted more from me. He complained that I gave him less attention and ignored him ever since Andrew started giving me attention. Well, yes, he was right about that. Andrew's new change made me rethink my actions. I felt so guilty. But then again, it wasn't my fault from the start. I gave deep thoughts about this mess I have drawn myself into and planned on telling Andrew. I wanted to also make things right again by letting my husband know that I cheated on him with one of my schoolmates, Patrick. I don't know why, but the guilt killed me inside. I called Patrick and ended things with him. I told him I couldn't continue with the relationship anymore, and I wanted to fix things up with Andrew. This didn't sit well with Patrick. He kept on calling and texting me to have a change of mind. I blocked his lines and ended all forms of communication with him. I also warned him not to come and visit me anymore because Andrew was constantly at home these days. Few weeks after breaking up with Patrick, I felt so uneasy and guilty. Andrew's presence and his lack of knowledge about his wife's infidelity was killing me inside. If Andrew should know about it, it shouldn't be from any other person except I tell him the truth myself. I tried on many occasions to let him know, but I guessed I was too scared of how his reactions would be. So, guys, I couldn't continue with the guilt any longer, so I waited for a perfect opportunity to tell my husband. One day, Andrew and I were sitting at home watching a movie together, and I summoned courage to tell him about how I had been having an affair with Patrick for 8 weeks now. I felt uneasy, but I noticed that he was so focused on the TV he was watching and didn't notice that I was fidgeting. Out of nervousness, I took the remote and paused the TV. Andrew was surprised by my actions and asked what was so important that I wanted to discuss with him that I had to pause what he was watching. He sat facing and asked me what was making me feel uneasy. I finally got courage, and I told him everything about my affair with Patrick. I noticed the look on Andrew's face while I was telling him everything. He got so furious to the extent of him throwing the glass of wine in his hands to the wall. The more I told him about what had transpired between me and Patrick, the more Andrew began breaking things he laid his hands on. I became very scared that I had to run out of the house and went to stay with my sister, Trisha. I told Trisha all about the situation and the reason why I cheated on my husband, Andrew. At first, Trisha was very angry with me for hiding such an important matter from her. All this while, but later tried to calm me down. She suggested I call my husband so she could have a word with him so he might calm him down. I tried calling Andrew, but he didn't pick up or return any of my messages. Trisha and I tried calling him for 30 minutes but had no response from my husband. My sister told me to get some sleep so that we could continue trying his lines the following morning. I woke up before Trisha and started calling Andrew. For a few minutes, the lines were reachable, but at some point, it wasn't reachable any longer. I kept on trying, but it seemed Andrew had blocked me on all platforms. I couldn't reach out to him. I wanted to talk to him and explain the reason for my actions. Weeks went by, and all communication from Andrew was not possible. So, Trisha decided to go with me to the house. On getting there, we saw Andrew trying to enter his car to drive out from the compound. I quickly ran to him, but all efforts to make him talk to me were all in vain. Andrew smacked the car door right in my face and instructed our gatekeeper to throw me out immediately before he drove out from the compound. I was completely shattered and heartbroken. How did I end up like this? Andrew couldn't even look at me twice. I guess I disgusted him at that moment. I left with Trisha feeling heartbroken. I couldn't go back to the place I called home. I practically used my hands to destroy the little family I was starting to build. My marriage of 3 years was gradually coming to end right before my eyes in seconds. I wished Andrew could listen to me and know that all that happened were as a result of his late-night shifts, hectic work schedule, and his lack of attention. He prioritized his work and gave me less attention. I wanted to tell him how he made me beg for his attention and how his absence at home killed me silently. I am now beginning to regret telling him the truth. How could he do this to me after telling him the truth, and I refused to keep him in the dark? But guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg because Andrew took revenge, and he did so in a very wicked way. Now, I didn't know that I was practically living with a very dangerous human being. Yes, he's bound to react after learning about the infidelity, but not in the way he did. He did something unexpected and wicked. His revenge completely shattered me. It was as if he planned everything perfectly all along and waited for me to fall right into his trap. I think he suddenly started staying off from work so he could trick me into telling him the truth by myself. Maybe he already suspected and just wanted to confirm, and I was stupid enough to fall right into the charade. I guess my lesson is well learnt now. Few months went by and I didn't hear anything from Andrew, and I really wanted to fix things. So I got angry and left for his place. On getting there, the gatekeeper didn't allow me enter the compound because he was instructed by Andrew not to let me in. I tried pleading with him, but he refused. I guessed that he wasn't ready to allow me in, and Andrew must have let out strict instructions not to let me into the house. After much back and forth with the gatekeeper, I managed to find myself in the compound. I hurriedly escaped the gatekeeper and went into the house. I inputted the old passcode, and it seemed like Andrew hadn't changed the passcode yet. I felt a little bit emotional after getting into the house because I had missed my home. Everywhere had been quiet, and I didn't find Andrew inside, but his car was outside at the parking lot. I proceeded further and went inside our room hoping to see Andrew, but I didn't. I just guessed that he must have stepped out before I got into the neighborhood. I spent a while wallowing in self-pity before I realized that my side of the closet had been empty. I thought there was something in my eyes, and I had been seeing starts, but I realized that I was actually seeing, well, nothing that belonged to me was left in the house, and that really came as a big shock to me because the last time I checked, I didn't have time to pack my things before I left the house. I had to run out of the house because I was scared Andrew would hurt me. I was using my sister's clothes while I stayed with her. Not even my bags, clothes, or shoes remained. All my childhood photos and even my boxes were gone. The room looked like I'd never even stepped in before. I was very surprised, and I swear that if Andrew had been present, I would have literally shredded him to pieces. I had been looking forward to grabbing some clothes to wear because I was tired of using my sister's clothes. Andrew really did me dirty on that one, and I furiously waited for him to get back. All the fear I had in me actually disappeared, and I no longer felt scared of being alone with him. After almost 30 minutes of waiting and getting disturbed by the gatekeeper who was scared of Andrew finding me in his house, I finally heard the front door open. I ran downstairs hastily because I thought that Andrew was finally back. But I didn't see Andrew there. Instead, I saw a tall woman standing there. I was very surprised, and I asked her if she was lost. That was the only reasonable explanation I could come up with because I couldn't understand why a random stranger was at the door. The lady actually laughed and directed the question back to me. She asked me if I was the one last. I got angry and asked her who she was. She introduced herself as Andrew's girlfriend. I actually laughed and waited for her to tell me she was joking, but she never did. My world literally shattered all over again. The realization that Andrew had a girlfriend broke my heart. I started imagining different scenes, and it was very bad. I imagined that she was the same woman he might have been cheating on me with. I don't know if I was just thinking too much, but I was not in the right frame of mind to make any decision. The lady had the audacity to ask me to leave. I introduced myself as Andrew's wife, but she told me she already knew that. She then had the audacity to tell me I was soon to be the ex-wife. I won't even lie, guys. I wanted to pounce on her right there and then, but I just had to control myself. I asked her if she was the one that cleared my clothing and kept them somewhere. She said yes, so I asked her where they were. She actually laughed mockingly before telling me that Andrew had given everything to her and he told her to do whatever she liked with it. So she sold off most of them and threw the rest away. I didn't think twice before grabbing her shirt in that very moment. All sane thoughts left me, and all I wanted to do was just make sure I scarred her with my nails. I grabbed her hair and asked her where she kept my childhood pictures, and she told me that she burnt everything. I swear that I was very angry, and I almost removed the hair on her scalp. She tried fighting back, but I was far much bigger than her, and she was in a state of shock. I can't believe that Andrew had the audacity to do that to me. How could he let a stranger take care of my belongings? How could Andrew keep a total stranger in charge of my childhood pictures? The clothes, bags, and boxes don't matter as much as those pictures. Not even the jewelry and makeup hurts me like those pictures. I lived with my stepfather and mother all my life because my dad died before I was born. My stepfather was not the best father to me, and I counted down the days till I got married and was independent enough to live that house. I took all my pictures with me because I didn't want to live any picture with them. That's why it hurts me so much that Andrew gave those pictures to a total stranger. There is nothing anyone could tell me. Andrew knew of the attachment I had with those pictures, and that's why he did what he did. I've spoken to him about it before, and I know that he intentionally decided to make that decision. While I was still trying to pull the lady's hair, Andrew walked into the house. He rushed towards us and separated us immediately. Apparently, the gatekeeper had called him while he was at work and told him that I was at the house. I asked Andrew why he did what he did, but he refused to give me an answer. He grabbed my hand and dragged me out of the house immediately. He told me to leave the house and never come back again. I was shocked that he had taken the side of a total stranger instead of listening to me first. I actually started crying because I could not believe that Andrew could do that to me. I never expected such a wicked thing from him. I asked him why he gave that lady the right to burn my childhood pictures, and Andrew told me that he could not care less whatever happened to me. I asked him if he was aware because his answer was the only thing that would determine my next action. He said he was aware and that he gave the orders. I slapped him on the face, and he was very surprised of the act. He tried coming at me later, but the gatekeeper grabbed his hand and stopped him from acting. Nothing he ever did to me pained me just like what he did. How could he do that? My childhood all gone. I left the house, and that's the last time I had seen Andrew. I decided to go to my stepfather and mother's house because my sister could hardly manage to feed the both of us. When I got there, I got another shock of my life. I discovered that Andrew came to my mother and stepfather, and he told them all about everything that happened between us. That was a very big blow to me because they are very religious people, and they do not tolerate infidelity or lies. They were not ready to accept me back into their house after what they heard. Even my own mother threw me out. I didn't expect anything good from my stepfather because we had never been close, but my mother really surprised me. I left the house and went back to my sister's place. I told her everything that happened, and she promised to help me out. I just told her not to worry about it and that I will move out in 2 months' time. It's been 2 weeks, guys, and I'm trying to find the best thing I can do for myself. The truth didn't save me at all. The truth just brought me more misery and pain. I regret telling him the truth. I should have just lied to him. Maybe that would have been the best thing to do. I guess once bitten, twice shy then. I don't plan on ever seeing Andrew again, and I will be filing for divorce. I waited for him to come with the divorce papers, but I haven't heard anything from him yet. Well, I will be filing the divorce, and I will definitely ask for alimony, spousal support, or whatever it's called. That man did me dirty, and I plan on trying my best. Update. The single life isn't as fun as you all make it seem. I'm not having as much fun as I thought the single life would be, lol. I never even thought I'd have fun in the first place, but I guess a little sense of humor is the best for the kind of hard life I'm living. For the first time in my life, I'm completely independent, and that's just one of the best things I've ever felt. I was in a hurry to leave my stepfather's house, so I got married as soon as I could. But now, I'm on my own and I'm learning what independence means. I filed for divorce, and our divorce was settled on 3 months. Andrew and his lawyer gave me a fair deal, and I was settled. My lawyer told me to take the deal immediately he saw it. I guess Andrew low-key understands just how much damage he caused me. It was a bittersweet feeling for me at the end of the day. I left my sister's house and rented out my own apartment. I have a CV and I graduated as an historian. I now work, and I've earned my first salary recently. Andrew and his new girlfriend have been going out a lot, and I've even seen pictures in social media. He has never been a social media person, but suddenly he's more than interested in posting pictures online. When he was with me, he was always extremely busy with work, and then he suddenly decided to start having time for social media. I even discovered that Andrew intentionally started giving me extra attention because his friend Stanley told him that there was possibility of me cheating on him if he didn't start giving me the kind of attention I craved. That's why he got scared of getting embarrassed and decided to give me attention in order to save his face among his friends. It was obvious that they had started talking behind his back after what happened at his birthday party, and he didn't want that. Anyway, I don't care anymore, and when Stanley came to meet me and tried to have a conversation with me, I refused to listen to him. I have no business with him anymore, and I don't want to have anything to do with him. Andrew is now my past, and I sincerely hope that I don't meet this kind of person in my life again. I regret telling him the truth, but I'm also happy I told him the truth. It's half sweet, half bitter, and I guess everything that happened was meant to happen all along. That's it, guys. I'm just working now, and I have to get to sleep early so I can wake up for work early. I don't want to be late. Thanks for accompanying me on this journey. Words fail me, and at this point I'm struggling to come up with the right words to say what is on my mind. My husband doesn't even want to touch me at all. He doesn't want to look at me or even pick my calls. No wife wants her husband to treat her that way, and I am one of those women. I know what I did was and is still wrong. There's no excuse for that, and I don't think I'll ever recover from what I did to him. The fact that my touch grosses my husband out now is very depressing for me. It's not something I expected from him, and it's not a reaction I thought he'd have. I cheated on him with my personal coach, and now my daughter might grow up in a broken home. My name is Daniela, and I'm a 25-year-old gymnast. Gymnastics is something I love a lot, and I have done it for close to 5 years now. I am not an extreme professional, and I do not play at the national or international level. It is just something I love doing, and I play at many competitions in the city. I am able to earn money when I win those competitions, and sometimes I conduct training and charge people to learn from me. Being a gymnast has a lot of ethics, and there is a lot of training I have to do. I have to train almost all the time so that I can be able to perform and teach the people under me well. I am also a married man, and I have been married for close to 4 years now. I got married quite early because my husband caught my eye, Lowell. He proposed barely 1 year after we started dating, and I said yes without thinking about it because he is someone I really like. The name of my husband is Cole, and he is 28 years old. He is a dietitian and has been a dietitian even before we met. Our marriage is like a healthy marriage because both of us are very fit, and we like to eat very healthy. As a dietitian, Cole is very strict with the food we eat and everything that we take into our body. I also manage to stay healthy because I am married to him, and they are certain foods that he doesn't let me take. There are many times when I used to struggle with food even before I met him, because as a gymnast, there are many things that I have been told not to eat, but it was hard to keep up. I didn't even know a lot about the proper diet to take, and I did not want to spend money on hiring a dietitian. So when I met Cole, it was very easy for me to blend in and keep up with my diet. Is very good at what he does, and I am always thankful that I found him. But it seems like all of that is now a story for the past because there is nothing I can do at this point. I have used my own hands to put a very huge bridge between us, and I don't think I can honestly get rid of the guilt I feel right now. Barely 9 months ago, I gave birth to my first child, Nora. She's the sweetest soul, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love her so much, and I don't think I can ever stop loving her. But having Nora was not easy at all. I'm not even going to limit everything to only me and act like I was the only one that was stressed and tired. Even Cole went through a lot during my pregnancy, and it was a very tough time for us. I think the physical aspect wasn't even the toughest thing I had to go through. For me, it was the mental and emotional stress that I put myself through. When I say mental stress, I mean it literally. It was hard for a person like me who has been all about my physical fitness and maintaining a fit body to suddenly have to go through pregnancy. I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was at all. In fact, I never expected it to take a toll on me. I knew I wanted children, and I still want children. Cole and I spoke about it a lot during the first weeks of our marriage, and we had decided to wait some years before we tried having a child. Just like we planned together, we waited for almost 2.5 years before I got pregnant. Seeing my body change every day was not easy for me at all. I just watched how my body changed from its normal state to fit the body of a pregnant woman. Not even Cole had been able to make me feel better. To his credit, I know he tried his best. He tried to calm me down and make me feel better, but I'd been so absorbed in my own thoughts that nothing he said made sense to me. it was also very difficult for me to have to change my usual diet. I'd always watched how I eat, and I never eat a lot. I didn't even eat junk before. But after getting pregnant, my body wanted a lot of weird things. And I've heard from a lot of people that it's a normal occurrence and that there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think I was ever able to understand why I eat so much. I tried resisting my cravings, but my doctor strictly told me that none of my former diets mattered during pregnancy. It was very hard, but I had to get used to it, so I did. Cole was helpful in his own little ways. He still had work, and he was barely home. But I appreciated the fact that he tried to be present in any way he could. It meant a lot to me, and I never took it for granted. But I still had to go through the pregnancy myself, and yeah, it was not easy. Now that I remember it, I don't know if I want to laugh or cry. My reaction to seeing my body when I was 9 months pregnant was crazy. I thought I'd never be able to be a gymnast again, but back then, I found it easier to adapt. I wasn't as worried as I was before, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. Even Cole noticed that I was not as cranky as I was before. It took me a while, 9 months, to finally accept the pregnant body. I started loving it, but my delivery date was due by then. I didn't work all through my pregnancy because my line of work expected me to climb on poles, no room for error. My husband rejects my touch after I cheated, my personal coach jump. Gymnastics involves a lot of physical action and body flexibility. I couldn't do any of that during my pregnancy, and it was risky for me and the baby. I had to close down my training center and sit out all the competitions I usually engaged in. I knew that once I finally gave birth, I'd have a lot of work to do before I got my career back on track and got my normal life back. The birth of my child Nora wasn't complicated at all, and it was all thanks to my husband and my doctor. They made sure I ate right and did the right exercises. I fell in love with my daughter the moment I set my eyes on her, and so did my husband. But our problems began from that very moment. I can never dispute the fact that my daughter was my bundle of joy, and her birth brought me the largest amount of joy. But her birth also made me feel insecure all over again. My body after giving birth to her was not the same as my body before getting pregnant. I thought I'd magically go back to my old body, but that was not the case. I am an only child, and I lived with my dad all my life before getting married. I've never really been close to someone pregnant or had a lot of lectures about how pregnancy works. I was a first-timer with no previous knowledge. I know I had nurses and the internet to give explanations, but there's nothing like hearing from the horse's mouth live and direct and seeing everything for yourself. I thought I'd be an exception because I was a gymnast and I trained a lot. Well, that wasn't the case, and it came as a big shock to me. I almost got depressed again, but my daughter helped me stay strong. I breastfed Nora exclusively for 3 months before I started going non-exclusive. I stayed at home with her for some weeks after she turned 3 months before I told my husband I was ready to get back to work. That was where the genesis really began, guys. My husband agreed and stated that he had no problem with me getting back to work, but I had a lot of problems with getting back to my previous body shape. I was very insecure, and I didn't want to get back to class like that. Back then, I used to be the one that told my students to stay fit and not let their body get the best of them because staying fit was very important in gymnastics. But for me to be the one going back without staying fit was not okay. I needed to be the example as a teacher, and even though they all knew I'd just given birth, I was still very insecure. The first day I was supposed to go, I refused to go, and I stayed home all through. When Cole came back and noticed that I'd been at home all day, he asked me what the problem was, and I told him that I wasn't confident in my body. The same thing happened 3 more times, and that's when I decided to seek advice from my fellow gymnasts that had given birth before. I was not ready to watch my career slip off my fingers, because gymnastics was something that I'd done for a very long time. Most of the people I met told me it was totally normal, and that if I wanted to get my body back, all I needed to do was get a personal coach or go to the gym regularly. They asked me how fast I wanted to start work, and I told them that I wanted to start immediately because I needed to get back to work and I'd already wasted a lot of time. That's why they told me it was best to get a personal coach. They said it was faster to have someone coach me and keep an eye on my growth. They also recommended some good coaches to me, and I told them I'd get back to them after speaking to my husband. When Cole came back from work that day, I told him of my plans to get a personal coach in order to get my body back again. Cole asked me if I already had some options in mind, and I told him that they recommended some people already to me, but I was open to more suggestions. I asked him if he had people he wanted to introduce to me, and he said yes. I told him I had no problem with him choosing the coach for me. All I really wanted to do was get a coach that was good at his job and could help me stay fit. I didn't care who he was or who introduced me to him. I also guessed that Cole must have had his reasons for choosing the coach for me personally. I just thought that maybe he wanted to be familiar with the coach that would eventually train me. I initially wanted it to be a female coach because I was not really comfortable with a male coach seeing me in my insecure state. But it was hard to get a female coach, and most of them were not ready to work with a woman that just gave birth. They said it would be more difficult to work with a mother because they would go easy on her. I didn't get what kind of logic that was, but I had no choice. The only great coaches I knew were women, and they were either booked or not ready to work with a woman. Cole was finally able to find a coach for me after weeks of trying, and I was very grateful for that. I needed to start work immediately, so I was introduced to the coach barely 2 days after he was hired. His name is Landon, and I discovered that he was a 30-year-old fitness instructor. He also coached gymnasts that wanted to get back in shape. My husband seemed a little bit familiar with him, and that made me quite comfortable. I was still nervous because I put a lot of pressure on myself and wanted to put in a lot of work. Landon and I started out very professional, and we never even spoke except for physical fitness-related topics. Landon was very dedicated to his work, and I was very dedicated to getting my body back to its normal fitted form. London also had a lot of clients to attend to, and I was not the only one. Anytime I went back home after a session with Landon, I always gave my husband feedback and told him how stressful it was. Even though I had a lot of reasons to work hard and not slack off, it was hard for me to get used to exercising all over again. Do you know what it means to have a 1-year break? I was practically a rookie when it came to exercising, and it was a very weird feeling for me. I even found it hard to go back to my old diet, and that was one of the major challenges in my workout. Landon was very patient at first, but with time I could tell that he was also getting very tired of me complaining about several things instead of putting in work. One day, he decided to confront me and ask me why I was not putting in a lot of work. I apologized to him and told him that it was just difficult for me to keep up because of everything that had happened. He listened to me and did not interrupt me while I spoke. He just told me that I should not let everything that happened in the past get in the way of what I wanted to in the future. Landon told me that he knew most of the things he was saying were easier said than done, but it was important for me to have the right mindset or else I was just wasting my time and also wasting his time. He gave me a book that he said I should read in order to set my mindset right. I was very thankful, and I promised to read back that book because I was really desperate for good results. After reading the book, I told him that I finished it after 1 week. He then told me that it was important for me to use my daughter's birth as motivation, because it was important for me to have a mindset that enabled Nora to be my biggest motivation. That was not difficult for me because I really wanted to do things right and be able to let her know that our mother did not give up when things did not go her way. Landon and I became friends, and I enjoyed the stories of other people that struggled with the same thing I had been struggling with. It was refreshing to know that I was not going through that tough time alone because I used to feel guilty and think that I was overreacting. I started looking forward to our classes even though we only had classes 3 times in a week. I really enjoyed the moments when I would be praised for the progress I made and when I would be complimented. I didn't even realize that I started craving Landon's classes. It was not something that I was consciously aware of, and I just tried my best to keep on going to the class. I also reopened my gym training classes because I was slowly getting myself back together. I had regained my confidence to a certain level, and I had been ready to get back to work. I knew that I was not fully there yet, but I just wanted to put one foot in and try my best first. Cole kept asking me why I was not done with the personal training, and I told him that it was because I didn't want to slack off when I stopped. Cole started getting very irritated with the personal classes, and even though he did not tell me directly, I knew that he was no longer happy that I kept on having the personal classes with Landon. I didn't expect to get such a reaction out of Cole at all. I used to think that he was perfectly fine with me having a coach that would help me regain my fitness. But his behavior after I reopened my training center told me that was not his plan at all. I just concluded that I had been seeing things, and I decided that I would not say anything until Cole told me what he felt by himself. I didn't have to wait for long at all because Cole eventually called me one day and told me he had to speak to me. I don't think it was a coincidence that he chose to speak to me on the exact day that I was supposed to go and see the coach. I had no choice than to cancel the meeting that day and tell the coach that I had come down with a fever. I asked Coley what was so important that he could not tell me the night before, even when we had slept in the same bed. He just brushed off my accusation and told me that he had forgotten to tell me the night before. He told me that he felt it was about time that I stopped seeing the personal coach. I was really surprised to hear that from him because I did not know that he had been thinking about that. I asked him what his reasons were and why he suddenly felt that way, and he told me that his thoughts were not sudden and that he had been thinking about it for a very long time. He asked me if it was possible that I will stop 2 weeks from that conversation, and I told him that it was not possible. I had a very big fear of stopping and then getting back to slacking off. I tried to explain my concerns to Cole, but nothing I said made sense to him. He said his words were final and that he did not plan on going back on his words. I was very surprised to see Cole act in that authoritative manner. We actually got into an argument, and he told me he was not ready to have his wife continuously train with a personal coach that was a male. The funny thing is that nothing had happened between Landon and I during that period yet. I didn't even cheat on Cole before he started getting strict. Cole told me that people were talking, and he was tired of making excuses for me. I tried to make him understand where I was coming from, but he shunned me down and told me his decision was final. Even though I was not really happy with his decision, I decided that it was best to let it go and not say anything. I agreed to stop my personal classes with the coach on the condition that I had 2 more months to have my personal classes. Cole was not ready to agree at first, but when I told him that was the only way I would stop, he agreed. I was very upset that he had been suspecting me and that he wanted to cut my personal classes short. I didn't get why he wanted to be the one to dictate how long I did my own workouts. Even though he had been supportive to an extent, I was the only one who could understand what I actually felt, and he was just an observer. I told the coach that we only had 2 months to train together before I stopped coming to the classes. Landon asked me why I suddenly made the decision, and I told him that my husband was the one who decided on my behalf. Landon decided that it was first I started coming for my training classes more regularly, in order to train as much as I could before the 2 months elapsed. I felt really frustrated that I had to end the classes, and I did not keep my thoughts away from the coach. Never. He told me not to worry about it and that he could understand where my husband was coming from. We spoke more during our training classes and found time to discuss the next step. It felt weird for me that after each training class, I always felt quite awkward. I literally never wanted to leave the training classes even after we were done. That continued for a few more weeks, and Landon noticed. He tried playing it off at first, but I think I noticed it and took it as a cue for a green light. He started making funny remarks and bringing up conversations outside of fitness. There were times when he would randomly compliment my body and flirt with me. I don't want to lie, so I will tell the truth. I never stopped him from flirting with me, and there were times when I flirted back. Barely 5 days after we started flirting with each other, he kissed me after one of our classes. I kissed him back, and we ended up making out for hours. He asked me if I wanted to follow him to his house, and I said yes. I wasn't even thinking, and I ended up sleeping with him that day. I slept off and woke up almost 2 hours later. I realized that it was already 6 p.m. when I woke up, and I was supposed to be at the house already. I couldn't believe that I had cheated without alcohol influence. I did it without being drunk. Landon tried convincing me to stay the night, but I refused. I told him that I just couldn't continue whatever we had going on. He was very upset, and then he asked me a very important question. If you're not ready, then why did you lead me on? I couldn't deny the fact that I led him on, and I apologized for that. I told him that I just couldn't continue to cheat on my husband. He was very furious, but I left his house after saying that to him. Ever since I started training with Landon and going to train my students, my mother was the one who babysitted Nora for me. I decided to sleep at my mother's place that day, and I called Cole to tell him I would not be returning home. Cole was surprised because all through our marriage I'd never asked to sleep outside the house before. He asked me where I was, and I assured him that I was at my mother's place. He didn't question me after that. He ended the call and then I switched off my phone. I slept in my mother's hands with my daughter that night, and I could tell that she sensed that something was wrong. She just didn't want to say it out loud. The next day, my brother practically sent me out of her house. She thought I ran to her because I was having issues with my husband, so she didn't want to keep me from resolving my issues with him. I tried to make her understand that it wasn't the case, but all my pleas fell on deaf ears. I had to just leave her house and go back home to meet Cole. When I got home, he was surprisingly at home. That was very unusual because he usually went to work early. And I asked him if there was any problem, but he just told me that he had been tired, and that was why he made the decision to skip work that day. I was not really happy about that, because the last thing I wanted to do after cheating on my husband with my personal coach was see him around the house all day. I didn't want to raise his suspicions by acting like it was a problem, so I just went to the bedroom with Nora. I had to give her a bath because we left my mother's place without taking a bath since we were in quite a hurry. I got her dressed up, and then she told me she felt sleepy, so I read her some books before she slept off. After putting Nora to bed that day, I found it very hard to sleep. I wanted to sleep just so I could ignore my husband. But sleep didn't come at all, and I kept thinking about everything that happened with Landon. While I was busy thinking, Cole walked into the bedroom and he asked to have a conversation with me. He sat on the bed with a cigarette in hand. He didn't light it yet, and I could tell it was because of Nora's presence. I was aware that Cole had the habit of smoking whenever he was stressed. In a year it was possible he would only smoke a total of 8 times. So when I saw the cigarette in his hand, I knew that there had to be something wrong. I was worried, but I didn't suspect that he knew I had been cheating on him. By that time, I still had 2 weeks before I finished the personal classes with Landon. Cole asked me how that was going, and I just told him that I no longer wanted the classes. He asked me why, and I just said that I finally found my confidence. My main reason is because I didn't want to continue seeing Landon every day, knowing fully well that he had feelings for me and I had cheated on my husband with him. I didn't want to make the complicated situation more complicated, so I chose to choose the easy route. I asked Cole what he wanted to speak to me about, and he just asked me why I slept outside the house. I told him I'd missed my mother and just wanted to keep her company for some time. Cole didn't say anything for a very long time, and I didn't know what had been going through his mind. I tried to act nonchalant by acting like I was suddenly sleepy. I asked him if there was anything else he wanted to say, and he said no. I ended up pretending to sleep after that. I gathered my daughter in my hands and cuddled her. Cole later left the room after that. He came back some minutes later and dropped a note on the nightstand. I pretended to be asleep, but after I heard the front door open and close, I checked the note. He just wrote in the note that he wanted to go grab some fresh air. I was relieved to see that he left the house. I had my bath, then changed my clothes. I just had some noodles for breakfast before going back to sleep. I actually slept at that time. 1 week after I cheated on Cole and discovered that he had no clue, I thought he'd never find out, so I wanted to forget the incident and make my marriage work. I didn't want to lose him, and I didn't want Nora to live without both her parents in the house. I grew up without a dad, and I didn't want to be the one to make my daughter go through the same. Cole was hardly at home during those 7 days, so it was hard to get together with him. But I decided to spice things up with him during the weekend. After putting Nora to bed, I got dressed in a very skimpy nightgown and lit candles in the room. I feel like a fool now that I think about how stupid I had been. I wanted to be extra and set the mood just like I'd seen in some of the videos I'd watched. It was just my way of having fun and doing something right for both of us. I didn't get to work for 1 week because I had to stay home and think about everything that had happened. I came to the conclusion that I wanted to save my marriage, so I had to go through all those means. When Cole came into the bedroom, he was very shocked and his eyes widened in surprise. I blushed a lot because I had never done anything like that in my life. I walked up to him and spread my hands around his shoulders, but Cole pushed me away. I was very shocked to see what he did. I didn't know what to expect when I lit up the room and got into a skimpy nightwear, but I certainly didn't expect my husband to act the way he acted with me. I was embarrassed, but I tried to act strong and not show it. I asked Cole why he behaved that way, but he didn't respond, so I tried to walk up to him and touch his hair. He always liked it when I touched his hair, but Cole rejected my touch and pushed me again. It was hard to process getting rejected by my husband. I won't even lie. I tried touching him again, but he rejected my touch again. Instead of pushing me that time, he grabbed both of my hands and twisted them behind me. Guys, I actually got scared and tried to run away because I didn't understand why he was behaving like that. Cole looked into my eyes and started shaking his head. He was so angry that I could see the veins that were lined up in his neck. "So you cheated on me with your personal coach, and then you want to touch me. You think you have that right?" Those were the words Cole said to B. I was very shocked to hear that he had been aware of the truth. He told me I made a fool out of him and that I made him a laughingstock just because he didn't write off my feelings and cared for me. I started crying like a fool because I didn't know what to do. I dropped on my knees and started apologizing to him. Cole wanted to yell at me, but we heard our daughter crying in her room. She had woken up. Cole just bit his lip and told me to expect the divorce papers soon. That was all he said before leaving the house. I have not seen Cole since that day at all. It's been 8 days, and he hasn't even come to the house to see his daughter. My mother has been the one coming to the house, and she has tried her best to call him, and he has blocked the both of us. I got so tired that I just started typing away on the computer as my way of dealing with everything that happened. I saw that Reddit is one of the best places to share stories like this, so I decided to share it here. Update. Nothing changed, guys. Cole still rejected my touch after he came back 14 days later. I didn't see him for a total of 22 days. He just came back and handed me the divorce papers. Then he asked me to pack out of his house. My mother was at the house at that time, and she tried to beg him on my behalf, but nothing she said was able to get him to change his mind. He had made up his mind, and nothing I said was able to change that. I asked him how he found out, but he ignored me and chased me out of the house after packing my things. I told him that if I left the house, I'd be leaving with Nora, and that I will not let him take her. He told me he had no problem with me taking her with me. He was busy with work, so he couldn't just leave her at the house. I was very relieved to hear that, and I left without complaining. I told my mother to take Nora home with our belongings. I had to go to Landon's place and ask him what had happened and why Cole had a big injury on his shoulder. When I asked Landon what happened, he told me that 2 days after we slept together, Cole had rushed into his house and picked up a fight with him. He said Cole asked him if he slept with me. I was surprised that Cole would suddenly ask that. I was suspicious and accused Landon of telling Cole the truth. He denied that and told me that Cole asked him if I had slept over at his place. That was when I realized that Cole must have thought I lied when I said I was at my mother's place, and since he had been suspicious of me and the coach before, he suspected him. I then understood why Landon had not been home frequently for a full week after I slept with Landon. He found out the truth and chose to avoid me. Landon also told me that he told Cole the truth after they punched each other. I was very angry with Landon, and I accused him of being a snake. He told me that was his way of paying me back for leading him on. Landon also had an injury, but I didn't care. I just left his house and warned him never to reach out to me. Cole and I got divorced 1 month ago, and it's been very difficult. Nora keeps asking me where her daughter is, and my guilt just keeps on rising to the extreme. I can't believe that my bad decisions will make my daughter grow up in a broken home. I never wanted that for her, but I ended up being the one to ruin the home for her. I'm wrong and I'm guilty. I should never have compromised everything we had in our marriage. I should have stopped going to my workout sessions the moment I realized that I was getting attracted to the coach. I should have never flirted with the coach. There's no day that I don't regret everything I did, but I just have to accept the consequences of my actions and focus on Nora. I just pray she doesn't resent me when she grows up.